one thing that I thought was interesting is that you would actually kind of take a very proactive way of language learning. Like maybe you would go to malls and try to start conversations, and I thought that that was really cool. You have a quote that I thought was really interesting, and it's something that I've thought about before, but I don't know if I'm 100, like I don't know where I stand, but I completely see where you're coming from. You said that you can't be a very successful shy language learner.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
don't you expand on that? I think that's such an interesting concept.
So when I first got into learning languages personally, I was a lot more shy, and so like I started with German, but then like I ended up giving up twice, and then I ended up learning Spanish because the principal at school told me that if you learn multiple languages, the subsequent languages end up getting easier. So I was like, okay, I'll learn Spanish just to get the ball rolling a bit because it's more similar to French. So I was still very shy at the time, and I grew up in a city that had a pretty high Latino population.
Oh,
So there were
nice.
tons of native speakers of Spanish around me, but the problem was talking to them, and that was the scary part. So I remember my first conversation, at least the first that I remember, was in Costco, and there was a group of Latinos just hanging out in Costco, and I wanted to talk to them, but I was so scared. And then but I knew I had to practice Spanish. I needed to practice it somehow. So I just walked up and I approached them and we talked for a bit. And then at the end, I just remember thinking, wow, I didn't die. They didn't like judge me. They didn't insult me. They were really patient. They were super friendly. And then that's kind of when I saw that if you want to be successful at language learning, you have to push your boundaries, and you can be a shy language learner, but if you want to be a very successful language learner, in my opinion, you have to at least be a little bit outgoing. If you want to, well, it depends on what you want to use languages for. Like I like to speak them. Some people just learn languages to read them and enjoy literature, but I prefer to speak. So I definitely had to force myself to come out of my shell in order to get better at this.
Wow. And about how old were you when you started trying to start conversations out in public?
So the first one was about around the age of 15 I want to say 15. And then I would do it occasionally, but I was still pretty shy until I turned about I was either 20 or 19. I can't remember. But um the second time that it really dawned on me, yeah, so I would have been 19. So I just turned 19, and there was a language exchange in Toronto. It was called Toronto Babel. I don't know if it's still around now, but that was my favorite place to be.
Well,
So I remember I walked in. I was super shy. It was my first time ever being in a bar before, I think. So like I walked in. The organizer, super friendly guy. He greeted me, and then he just like asked me if it was my first time, if I'd ever been before and stuff, and what language I wanted to practice. So I told him that I wanted to practice some German. So he introduced me to a group of Germans, and then I was just so shy. So at first I talked for a bit, and then I was just too scared, so I just sat there. And then eventually I just got into my head a bit too much. So I just like, okay, I need to leave. But I was too shy to say I want to leave. So eventually I just got up and left, and they kind of looked at me like, where's he going? Because I don't think I said bye. And then I left, and then on the train back home, I realized, okay, like if I want to get take my language learning to the next level, I really, really have to get on top of my shyness. And then so from that moment on, I started pushing myself to like, approach more strangers and stuff. My friends would come along with me and help too. I had one friend, he always thought it was really cool to see me speaking Chinese, and I was too afraid to approach. So he would approach the group and explain that I was learning Chinese, and then I would just talk, and then he was really cool. So he helped me come out of my shell a bit, and yeah, it was all at 19. That's when I started really taking things really seriously.
wow, that's really cool. And so this idea of getting out of your shell, were you primarily focused on language learning at the time? Because I know there's this whole concept of social freedom, and you want to be able to be social enough to talk to people, make new friends, to talk to a girl you might be interested in. Did this also extend to other aspects of your life, or was it kind of like just narrowly focused on trying to practice your languages?